Hello, this is VTV News brought to you from the Vietnamese capital of Hanoi. It is 6 p.m. local time. I'm Michael Liu and here are the headlines. Norwegian Prime Minister makes official visit to Vietnam. Khmer people to build mounds of sand in Chul's Made Festival. Today, Norwegian Prime Minister Erna Solberg began her official visit to Vietnam at the invitation of Prime Minister Nguyễn Tân Dũng. In the morning, the two Prime Ministers had a meeting after the official reception.
The visit of Norwegian Prime Minister Erna Solberg is expected to boost bilateral relations between the two countries. This is the second visit of Norwegian leaders to Vietnam since 1996. Earlier this year, Prime Minister Erna Solberg visited Vietnam as the co-chairwoman of the Millennium Development Goals Advocacy Group. At the meeting, the two prime ministers discussed measures to step up bilateral cooperation across fields of politics, economics, culture, and social affairs. Prime Minister Dũng affirmed that Norway is an important partner of Vietnam in the Nordic region. It is expected that the visit of Norwegian Prime Minister would enhance the diplomatic ties between the two nations in the future.
We've agreed to develop the bilateral relations across all levels. We will celebrate the 40th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the two countries in 2016. The two governments will create favorable conditions for businesses to connect and kickstart investment. We will sign an agreement in an aviation cooperation between Vietnam and Norway. The two countries will cooperate in many sectors such as education, defense, investment, and culture.
In the afternoon session, the Norwegian Prime Minister is scheduled to meet other Vietnamese leaders to discuss further the Millennium Development Goals and sustainable development.
National Assembly deputies conclude a two-day meeting today under the chairmanship of National Assembly Nguyễn Sinh Hùng. The revised law on state budget was carefully studied by delegates to ensure the effective and transparent use of the state budget. Issues concerning state budget management and public spending were raised by the delegates, besides local debt which were not reported to the National Assembly. Recommendations included regulations on state budget spending to avoid debt at local levels as well as clear guidelines on budget usage. 98.42% of landowners in Thừa Thiên Huế are now certified compared to 60.7% in July 2013. This is thanks to local authorities' efforts to reform the legal process and the effective use of technology. The following report will take a closer look.
For a business like IMG Huế, time is a great expense. However, the fast-track legal process has greatly reduced the time needed for paperwork for the investor of An Kieu City, a new urban complex in Thừa Thiên Huế.
Our real estate documents have been sought very quickly and conveniently. Responses to our queries have been fast too.
Thừa Thiên Huế province had issued nearly 610,000 certificates for a total area of over 336,000 hectares to landowners as of March 30th this year. Not only has this been made possible by the reduced legal process, but also transparent processing. More importantly, this process has been made consistent throughout all levels and agencies through the use of digital technology.
We've used the geographic information system of Huế to keep track of the real estate to be granted land ownership certificates. Previously, we only granted this certificate if all parties were present. Under the simplified process, we can now grant a certificate directly to the land user as a representative of all inheritors.
98.42% of landowners in Huế can now comfortably use their property, and data is constantly updated on Thừa Thiên Huế Real Estate Information System. This clearly reflects the determinations of authorities there to professionalize, innovate, and ensure consistencies for the best interest of the people.
An international conference on critical care was held on Thursday in Da Nang in collaboration with the American Association of Critical Care Nurses. More than 600 Vietnamese and foreign participants attended the conference and discussed 17 topics related to critical care. About 70% of the reports given at the conference were addressed by American critical care experts. Discussions focused on the treatment of severe sepsis and septic shock, liver failure, acute strokes and brain hemorrhages. Prior to this conference, a 3-day training course was held by top American doctors in critical care at Bạch Mai Hospital in Hanoi and severe hospitals in Da Nang. Search and rescue efforts are underway after 2 Su-22 M4 fighter jets went missing during a training exercise yesterday afternoon. Under the command of the Ministry of Defense, Army Forces, Coast Guard, fisheries, inspectors and fishermen are circling the area where the planes are thought to have crashed. So far, 3 subsidiary oil tanks have been found, but the pilots and their planes are still missing. We'll update you on the progress of the search in our next bulletin.
Vietnam is an intriguing blend of many charms. This land is where all manner of stunning landscapes await like a visual feast, rivaled only by the beauty of its people and their abundantly rich tradition and culture. Here is where you can relive the past in richest color or live it up in the bright lights of the big city. With so much more to offer, Vietnam is simply unforgettable.
Welcome back to VTV News. In 1973, after the Paris Peace Accord was signed, a group of war veterans from the then North Vietnam were sent to become part of a joint military group including forces of the Provisional Revolutionary Government of the Republic of South Vietnam and the Democratic Republic of Vietnam in Camp Davis in Tân Sơn Nhất Airport, southern Vietnam. The group stayed in Camp Davis for 823 days and made great contributions to the implementation of the Paris Accord in Vietnam. The following story tells us memories of these war veterans.
This is the U.S. military's transport aircraft C-130 that carried the then Lieutenant General Trần Văn Cha from South Vietnam to Hanoi. At that time, Cha was the head of the joint military group to Camp Davis in Saigon. In 1973, the Paris Peace Accords were signed with the aims of establishing peace in Vietnam. A joint committee was founded in Camp Davis to implement the accords. From then on, soldiers of North Vietnam could be sent at Tân Sơn Nhất Airport.
Suốt 823 ngày đêm.
We had to stay at Camp Davis for 823 days. Our delegation became a unit stationed in the middle of South Vietnam, and we struggled politically and diplomatically. Our delegation was held by General Bong Nguyên Giáp. We also fought through the media. We tried to highlight the Southern regime's violations of the Paris Accords.
According to Nguyễn Như Kim, soldiers from the North stations at Camp Davis at that time managed to make use of the other side's weaknesses, and that is how they avoided becoming hostages in Saigon.
At first, our working sessions with the other delegations were not easy. Later, we suggested that we would return American pilots if the U.S. and the Southern regime showed their goodwill. That's why the U.S. urged the Southern regime to strictly observe the accords. According to the Paris Accords, troops would retreat and prisoners of war would be returned. There were 554 American soldiers arrested. Retrieving these soldiers was a big concern for the U.S., so it did not dare to violate the accords.
Then Lieutenant General Chen Wen-cha also made a similar deal with the head of the U.S. delegation. Cha said that he had information about an American pilot imprisoned in Chaweng province, but he would only reveal the information if he was allowed to fly to Hanoi on a U.S. aircraft. The U.S. delegates accepted the deal, and that was the reasons why a military officer from North Vietnam was able to travel to Hanoi on a U.S. aircraft during wartime.
The Vietnam Cinema Department has announced a film series to commemorate the 40th anniversary of Southern Liberation and National Reunification, as well as other important national anniversaries in 2015. Among the films to be screened nationwide are 4 new releases funded by the state budget: Path Through the Forest, Ultimate Victory, the documentary, and Children of the Village, as well as To Chin in Thailand. From April the 20th to May the 12th, film weeks will be held in Hanoi, Đắk Lắk, Ho Chi Minh City and Nghệ An, where audiences will be able to watch famous movies and have a chance to meet and talk with the film crews. The Chol Nam Thmai New Year Festival is one of the most important festivals in the year for the Khmer people. In the second day of the festival, people eagerly gather in local temples to build mounds of sand in search of happiness and luck. These days, these traditional activities has been extended with some meaningful changes. Let's find out more about these mountains in the following report.
Lim Satha is a Buddhist follower in Dai Van Commune, Sóc Trăng Province. Over the past 40 years, he has always come to the local temple to build mounds of sand in the Chol Nam Thmai New Year Festival. This activity has a sacred meaning to his family.
After building mounds of sand, the monks will pray for ancestors of everybody. I believe that this will help my ancestors find peaceful in heaven.
On the second day at the Chol Nam Thmai New Year Festival, local Buddhist groups came to the temple to build mounds of sand. They built 8 mounds of sand around the main temple to pray to the Buddha and chant prayers for a happy new year. Besides, it's also an opportunity to pay respect to their ancestors. An abbot explains the story behind such mounds of sand.
Once upon a time, there was a family who hunted a living. While the wife lived a virtuous life, the husband was the one who had to kill many animals. When the wife died, she went to heaven. An angel told her that her husband would be sent to hell after he died. The wife told her husband to build a mound of sand as a symbol of honoring the souls which he had to take in hunting, and thereby clearing his life of sins. And after that, the husband went to heaven.
The story has been told for generations to advise people to do good things for their life. In modern society, this tradition has some changes with special meanings. In some Khmer temples, besides the 8 mounds of sand in the folk story, the Buddhist monks and local people build more 5 mounds, which represent 5 continents, praying for everybody in the world.
Now, just before we say goodbye, let's take a look at the latest weather update of selected cities around the world. That's it for our newscast. Simply log on to www.vtv4.vn or youtube.com/vtv4go. Goodbye for now, and thanks for stopping by.